All right, conservative underground, conservatism in exile. It's the Sean Hannity Show. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. You know, over the years, I've gotten to interview a lot of people, and I'll tell you what, there's one guy that I never thought I'd like as much as I have, having met him now a couple of times. He is just a trip and a lot of fun, and really shy and humble in his viewpoints. The former governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura, is back with us. How are you?
Hi, Sean. How you doing?
You know,
Sean, I have to say the same about you. You know, all I hear is how brutal and what a creep Sean Hannity is, and I got to tell people, well, he's only that way on television.
Thanks for the backhanded slap across my face. You know, I think it's all those years in wrestling. I think you've literally picked up the best one-liners of anybody that I know in the political arena.
Well, it helped. You know, a lot of people once asked me if you know, and actually that was a course I taught at Harvard, how pro wrestling prepares you for politics.
Well, I know that's the case. You actually talk about this in your book and how, look, if you want to be in the political arena today, you've got to be able to answer a question. You've got to be able to articulate your vision, and nobody would ever say that you have an inability to give an opinion on issues. And by the way, I've always found you, even though I disagree with some of your libertarian views, your war views, your views on Bush, and some of your economic views, I love the fact that you're refreshingly honest. And you've even taken on me in your book, and I could care less.
Well, you know, that's what got me elected, Sean, was the fact that I never used a prepared speech when I ran for governor, and I spoke from the heart. And I think that whether people agree or disagree with you, they can still respect the fact that, you know, that you're speaking from the heart and you're speaking what you believe.
You know, one of the things I don't want to talk about with you is all the things that we disagree on, because we're going to go round and round in a circle here.
Sure.
You and I have discussed the war before. We're never going to agree. You and I have discussed President Bush. We're never going to agree. You and I think we've even debated drug legalization at one point. I don't think we're going to agree on that either.
Well, it's all a question of whether you're more afraid of murder or marijuana.
Well,
you know, if you condone murder, then continue with the current policies. If you're not fearful of marijuana, then legalize. You know, Sean, it comes down to this. There's an old saying that if you don't study history, you're destined to repeat it. We're repeating it because the war on drugs is identical to the prohibition of alcohol.
All right, let's take marijuana out of it, and we can go back to in just a second here. But for example, can we say that there's an undeniable truth that if you're on heroin and you're on crack cocaine, that you pose a danger being on those drugs to other people, that is a predictable condition? Somebody whacked out on crack is a real and credible danger to society, a clear and present danger even.
I would agree with that if you'll include alcohol.
Well, the difference.
No,
let me answer your question.
Stop! You're a danger to society, and that's legal.
Well, here's the difference. For example, I don't drink a lot, but I'll have an occasional beer. I'll have an occasional glass of wine. I am not a big drinker. I don't like to.
So you don't abuse it.
Well, I don't abuse it, but here's the difference. If you take one hit off a crack pipe and you smoke crack, you know, within seconds, your mind is mush and you're out of your mind.
True. But if you're locked up in the privacy of your own home, who are you harming?
Well, the problem is that...
My thing is this, Sean. How do you put people in prison in a free society for a crime against yourself?
Well, the problem is that if we can say that there's a clear and present danger that the minute you take or inhale crack, cocaine, that there is a danger that you're no longer going to be in your right mind, that you present a danger, and you agreed with me that you're going to present a danger to other people, why would we legalize something that we know is going to have disastrous results, not only for the individual, but also put the rest of society in harm's way?
Well, you know, when you speak of legalization, it doesn't mean you're going to sell it at the 7-Eleven or the liquor store either. No, truthfully, there can be a controlled mechanism to where a hardcore addict that is on those type of drugs, you're still better off to give them a place to go and get them under control to where you have an attempt to, you know, rehabilitate them and turn them into a productive person in society. What you're doing now, you're simply sending them to the back alleys to deal with criminals, and you're making criminals rich.
All right, well, I disagree, and but
you don't agree that criminals are getting rich?
No, but the point is, I don't agree that we need, first of all, society will not survive if we don't have some type of moral order. I mean, that's where every law is predicated on some sense of morality and moral order. Do I want government in our bedrooms? You discuss this in the book. No, I don't. Do I want people to tell other people what they can do with their lives? No, I'd love to be as libertarian and purely libertarian as you are, but I don't see it as functional as you do. And I think if we can predict with certainty that people on crack cocaine represent a clear and present danger to innocent men, women, and children.
Now let's shift it, Sean. I've done your crack cocaine and I've done your heroin now.
Yeah. Now you want to do marijuana.
Marijuana is the least drug out of all of them.
I don't smoke marijuana.
It's not addictive like cigarettes. I've never met anyone that smokes pot and goes home and hits their wife. I've met a lot of people on alcohol that do that. So why shouldn't marijuana be legalized? And why don't we turn it into a money maker instead of paying to eradicate it?
Let me answer your question with a question. Do you think marijuana helps the average citizen advance their life and their career, or do you think it stunts their growth in as much as once you become a drug user or a habitual marijuana user, and I've had experience meeting people that have used marijuana a lot. Yeah. What is the usual case of people that are regular marijuana users? Do you find them people of great motivation, or do you find them people that have been stunted in some way? Because I
find it the effect of their own personality. I've seen it all. I've seen people who are greatly motivated on it. I've seen people that
I've never seen that.
I think it's up to the individual and what the individual is. I mean, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Okay? The Beatles admitted that they took LSD when they wrote Sgt. Pepper, right? Now that's illegal. And yet they were creative enough to write one of the greatest rock albums ever on it.
And what about the people?
Anna Nicole Smith took 7 prescription drugs and couldn't even dial 911, and they're all legal.
And what about all the people on LSD that jumped out of windows? And what about all the people on LSD that had bad trips and went into psycho wards for the rest of their lives?
Well, what about all the drinkers that have killed people on the highways? What about all the drinkers that have beat up their wives? And, come on,
I guess the only difference is
all drugs are bad if they're used, but you can't pick and choose between them and say, okay, well, look at cigarettes.
Wait a minute, but here's the difference.
Here you got cigarettes. It's tobacco. When it's used correctly, the end result is death, and yet we don't have a problem with that, do we?
Yeah, but it doesn't alter your state of consciousness.
Yes,
but if you, it does not.
I guarantee you, Sean, if you made tobacco illegal tomorrow, you would have murders committed over people trying to get cigarettes.
No, I don't doubt that, but I'm saying as a general state of consciousness, LSD will dramatically take you out of any state of consciousness, and for some people they have a good trip, and some people they have a bad trip.
That may be true. I've never taken it. I don't know.
I've never taken it either.
Getting back to marijuana, how about let's tax it and start making money in this economy?
You see, I don't want to live off.
Instead of today paying to eradicate it, spending thousands of dollars and all this. And you know why it's illegal? It's illegal because the lobbyists that oppose it spend more money bribing our public officials.
No, there's some truth to that.
And our public officials have no courage.
All right, but let me answer. The only thing I would say, and I really don't want to spend all our time talking about drug legalization,
sure.
but the only difference is that do you ever drink? Do you ever have a beer in the summertime?
No.
Never.
Never.
Have you ever?
Yes.
Okay, you've had a beer.
I can't now because I'm on blood thinners.
Okay, but
which makes it so you cannot drink at all.
Okay, but when you had a beer, as big a guy as you are, in the summertime, you were not affected. Your consciousness was not altered by having one beer.
I wouldn't say that necessarily because I drank so little. Yes, I feel one beer because I don't have the tolerance to it. All drugs, you got to remember, the more you use them, the more tolerant you become.
All right, but most people,
and therefore it takes more to get you high.
Even if you had a little effect from it, it was minuscule by comparison. If you smoke one joint, you're going to be